Canadians infiltrate the NBA Combine in Chicago. High school talents commit to their NCAA futures. New five-leaf prospects emerge at the EYBL, and J.Cole is headed to Scarborough to play with the shooting stars of the CEBL. All that and more on this edition of the Canadian Basketball News. We start with the NBA Combine. I just returned yesterday from Chicago, where I witnessed 4 Canadians participating in the event. There were 2 top 10 potential picks in Ben Matherin and Shaedon Sharpe, and 2 potential first-rounders in Andrew Nemhart and Leonard Miller. But we're going to start with Andrew Nemhart, who was probably the biggest stock riser out of all the Canadians this past week. Andrew had an excellent showing in the scrimmage, putting up 26 points and 10 assists. He showed that he was on a different level as a decision maker, putting pressure on the rim as a scorer, and facilitating out of the pick and roll at an elite level. Heading into the week, Nemhart was probably considered more of a second-round pick. But after a really strong in-game performance and impressive measurables, Nemhart has probably entered the first-round conversation. Nemhart's draft stock is rising, and I don't see him being available past 40 in the upcoming draft. Late first-round teams looking to contend immediately would love to add another 6'5", ball-handling, high IQ point guard that can step in and play right away from day one. Up next, were probably 2 of the most intriguing names at the Combine, and just happened to be 2 18-year-old Canadians in Shaedon Sharpe and Leonard Miller. Leonard and Shaedon find themselves in the Combine after unusual circumstances. Leonard coming from Canadian high school basketball, playing for Fort Erie in the OSBA, and Shaedon from Kentucky, never having played 1 game in college. Because of their unusual circumstances, there was a ton of intrigue by NBA execs to get their first up-close look at these young Canadian prospects. After leaving high school as the #1 prospect in the class of 2022, Shaedon finds himself firmly in the top half of the lottery in the upcoming draft, and is most likely going to be a top 5 pick. Shaedon fortified his draft stock with an elite 1-on-0 workout, showing his special level of athleticism attacking the rim, quickness off his feet, shot-making footwork, and deep range as a shooter. It's easy for teams to fall in love with Shaedon because he's the prototype 2-guard. He has the athleticism, the shot-making ability, and the 3-level scoring that every team covets. All of that mixed in with a 6'11" wingspan makes him a special level of prospect. Conversely, Leonard Miller started the year with no NBA expectation. His stock rose throughout the year, eventually earning OSBA MVP and winning a championship for Fort Erie. That got him to the Hoop Summit, where his stock rose even further as an intriguing 6'10" do-it-all wing. And it was that buzz from the Hoop Summit that earned him an invite at the NBA Combine this past week. Front offices are intrigued by Leonard because of his physical tools, ability to handle, shoot, and pass, which he showed some of at the Combine this past week. Whereas Nemhart's ready to play right away, teams recognize that there's going to be an adjustment period for Leonard to get used to playing in the NBA, going from the OSBA to high-level competition at any level, whether it's the G League or the league. Despite not being viewed as an impact player right away, Leonard has one of the higher ceilings in the draft at 6'10" with a 7'2" wingspan and an ability to handle, shoot, and playmake. Even after all this, Leonard still has the option of going to college or the Ignite route instead of having to go to the draft this year. He's narrowed his final 3 commitments down to the Ignite, Arizona, and Kentucky. If you've been following the Monday morning scouting report for a while, you know this is something that I envisioned for Leonard, and I'm happy to see him in the draft mix. Almost lost in the shuffle is Ben Matherin, a 6'6" shooting guard in his sophomore year at Arizona. There's a real comfort level with Ben in that A, he's going to go in the top 10 of the draft, and B, he's going to be a really good NBA player. His floor is pretty high because he's an excellent shot maker, he has deep range, he can already defend a number of positions, he has a great NBA body, and he has a tough mentality. I heard he interviewed very well as well over the week in Chicago. Ben seems to be in the middle ground of all the Canadian prospects because he's ready to contribute from day one, but he also has a lot of upside, even star upside. A lot of guys have been comparing him to players like Jaylen Brown and Chris Middleton. Athletic, two-way guards that can create their own shot with size on the wing and toughness. Let's also not forget that Ben Matherin is only 19 himself and has gotten significantly better in every year from high school to his 2 years at Arizona. When Ben left high school, he was my #1 rated prospect of any age in Canada, so I'm glad to see it worked out for him. The spotlight remains on Canadian prospects because 6'8" freshman small forward out of Michigan, Caleb Houston, declined his NBA Combine invite. Caleb was a top prospect coming out of high school, and NBA execs are wondering if he got a promise late in the first round, and that's why he shut everything down. Caleb was once an ESPN top 10 prospect, and teams remain intrigued by his positional size, shooting ability, switchability, and high character. Teams are probably pretty comfortable that Caleb's floor is that at least he can be a shooter for your team, and with the fact that he was once an ESPN top 10 guy, believe that there might be more upside than others have thought from his past year at Michigan. Needless to say, it was an eventful week for the top Canadian prospects in the NBA draft this year. Another Canadian with the potential to be in this year's draft is Fardasa Mack, who actually just transferred to Texas Tech and is keeping his college eligibility open for the moment until he decides whether or not he's either going to get drafted or potentially get a two-way promise. Regardless of what Fardas decides to do, he's helped his overall NBA draft stock by improving his mobility, his body, his athleticism, and his skill set, extending his range even to the three-point line. In other Canadian news, a number of the top high school prospects have made their college commitments. Players like Jeremy Fumena, Jefferson Monegro, Osei Okogie, Isaac Jack, and Cam Slaymaker committed to different NCAA programs. Some top prospects still remain in Canada and are undecided about their futures, including Elijah Fisher, who could decide to reclass to 22 and has both pro and high major NCAA options. For the top available unsigned Canadians still left in the 2022 class, I've broken down videos for each position, linked in the description below. A player that promises to be in the next crop of NCAA commitments is Cyril Martinov, who I watched on the EYBL 2 weeks ago in Indiana for team final. Cyril just finished grade 12 and has another year of eligibility if he so chooses. When I saw him on the EYBL, I was really impressed with his face-up game, athleticism, toughness, and skill set. Of the Canadian prospects, Cyril is a clear 5-leaf player, and you can expect a breakdown on this channel coming in the near future. Another rising Canadian name in the 2023 class is Michael Nwoko. Nwoko has had strong showings in Team Canada's camp and has received a lot of high major offers recently, including Boston College, Northwestern, and Texas A&M. He is one of the hot rising names in the class of 2023 in Canada. Speaking of the upcoming classes, a number of the top Canadians in the 2024 class participated in Basketball Without Borders in Mexico this past weekend. The 6 Canadians that participated in the 2024 class were Stephen Osei, Christian Nitu, Ishan Sharma, Keenan Emmanuel, Jovan Milicevic, and Chris Taggio. Each of these prospects has a unique skill set and high upside moving forward. Expect to see a lot more of them on this channel moving forward. Last but not least, one of the biggest rappers and musicians in the world, J.Cole, just committed to play for the Scarborough Shooting Stars out of the CEBL. The Canadian Elite Basketball League has been featuring the top Canadian prospects over the last few years and is growing rapidly. The league actually begins this coming Wednesday, May 25th. Over the last few years, the CEBL has been picking up a ton of steam, with some of their players like Lindell Wigginton and Xavier Moon picking up full-time NBA contracts. And now that momentum continues with one of the biggest names worldwide, J.Cole, playing here on Canadian soil. J.Cole's team, the Scarborough Shooting Stars, opens their CEBL season this coming Thursday, May 26th at Guelph. That's it for this edition of the Canadian Basketball News. Comment below what you think of this year's Canadian NBA crop and how you think J.Cole is going to fare in the CEBL this season. I'll see you guys in the next Monday morning scouting report.